This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
Young Derek would love to take my order.
Hi.
He works at the coffee shop just up the street.
Morning.
He's happy and annoying with a smirk the size of Texas. He's my coffee enemy.
Would you like a mochaccino? Or perhaps a cappuccino? Or maybe a frappuccino?
Said Derek wearing the chinos. All I really want is a cup of coffee. So strong the spoon stands up, just a cup of coffee. All I really want is a cup of coffee. Give me a friggin' cup of coffee, Derek.
This is Joshua Fitzgerald from the Neighborhood Watch Committee, and I found out that you've been walking your dog and it hasn't had a collar and it's been pooping in other people's yard.
Pardon?
So that's how. This is Joshua Fitzgerald, and you've been walking I'm head of your watch committee, and you've been walking your dog without picking up its feces.
I did not walk my dog. What day was this?
It doesn't matter what day it was. I'm going to give you
I did not walk
a
my dog on no feces or anything like that. No.
Hi, hello, Coffee Nation. Welcome to episode 9 of the Coffee with Friends podcast. I'm your host, Carl Coffee. With me once again is my co-host, Tim Anderson. How are you, Tim?
I'm fine, Carl. How are you?
Good. Our guest today, no joke, is a friend I had in middle school. But thanks to Facebook, I kept in touch with him. But this is the first time I'm actually talking with him since the mid-90s. Rob Daniel. How are you, Rob?
Oh, man, I'm lovely. Thank you so much for having me.
No problem. Before we look at the show topics, I just got to tell you, we're a part of two networks, guys. The Overtime Sports Network, you can check them out at otsportsnetwork.com or on Twitter at _OTSN. We're also a member of the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. You can check them out at DetroitSportsPodcastNetwork.com or on Twitter at Detroit Podcast. And Tim, you know, our last podcast was really Detroit sports heavy. We're gonna dial back a little. Not a lot of sports on this show. Are you okay with that?
But Carl, I thought this was a sports podcast.
Maybe. Let's look at these topics. We're gonna stump the experts. 1980s wrestling, 8-1,
Ooh.
iconic board games. We have a Pu Pu P challenge, and then our main topic is ranking the decades we were alive in. All four of us have been alive for 4 decades. Can you believe that?
I don't want to, Carl.
There's one decade we really don't remember, and there was the decade that I wish I didn't remember. So, you know what, Rob? You're our guest. You're my good friend in middle school, and I always thought you were going to be famous when you were older. I always thought that.
Why is that?
Because when you were 13, 12 years old, whatever, you were ahead of the time with your, not voicemails, but like... answering machines and your prank calls. You did prank calls without recording them, just for enjoyment. And it's like, dude, this guy's going to do something. So, I mean, I don't want to depress you. I know you're not famous, but hey, I thought you would.
Sorry to disappoint you, but yeah, I'm still doing prank calls. I'm still at it. And, you know, it's funny you should mention that because prank calling becomes a lot more fun as an adult because, for one, you can't get in trouble for it anymore, and most importantly, you're more creative and you're more resourceful as far as pissing people off and finding ways to keep them on the line. My strategy is to just mildly irritate them and then just string them along and gradually irritate them more and more, and then when they just about can't take it anymore, I'll hit them with something so off the wall and unbelievable, ultimately revealing that the whole thing is a prank, at which point they realize that they just wasted their fucking time, and that moment is just priceless. You can't buy that, Carl.
No.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. And listen, I know. So before we do the Stump the Expert, I'm going to jump right into the 8-1 topic, iconic board games. All right, we all know about board games, and I've listed 8 of the most famous ones. So I'm going to knock out the first matchup, and then we're going to try to stump you. Are you ready for the first matchup? And guess what, Rob? Me and Tim both have a veto, except in the championship. So if you pick something and we disagree, we can veto it. And you can veto a veto. It gets crazy. Are you ready?
Yes, sir.
All right, man, here it is. Monopoly. That's a big one. It might be the onesie. I don't know. Going against guess who? Who do you got moving on, Rob?
Guess who?
Whoa, holy cow. Tim, I'm going to go with you first. What are you going to do about this?
I'm going to have to go ahead and veto that.
Yeah, thank you.
Monopoly is a family game night institution.
This is BS, Rob. Listen, you're going to go in and stir things up for the first matchup? Are you serious?
I'm a rebel.
You got
I don't know what
vetoed.
to tell you.
Tim is vetoed out. I still have mine. And I'm quite frankly pissed that you picked Guess Who, which is it's a stupid game. It is. We're going to go to Stump the Expert. And I've been able to stump everyone. It used to be called I Bet You Can't, but I kind of like this better. I ask the guests a topic they're an expert in, and then I ask them a question, and I always stump them. Except for Rick Matthews, who everyone thinks cheated. Are you ready? 1980s wrestling, Rob. That's your topic.
Bring it on.
All right, so there's Vince McMahon. He took over for his dad, Vince J. McMahon. In what year? And here's a hint. It was in the 80s.
Well, that really narrows it down. I'm not sure that's even fair that you're going to give that away. But, I'm going to go ahead and say 1982. I mean, that was if I remember correctly, and going back to my digging deep down to my recollections, I mean, that was the rise of the Hulkamania era. And WrestleMania, the first WrestleMania was 3 years later in 1985.
All right, stop.
Mr.
Do you
T
have
was,
1980s wrestling Wikipedia up on your computer?
I don't. And I will tell you this. I am willing to submit my browser history to the Coffee with Friends podcast. Okay. Now, I should tell you that some of the contents that you will find might be disturbing, but you will see that there is no foul play in regards to this question. I know my stuff, and I'm going to go with 1982.
You got it right. No, my birth year. And listen, I'm proud.
And mine.
You're an expert in this topic, so I mean, I guess you might know. So Rob got it right. For the second time, I was not able to stump my guest. And a little housekeeping here. Our last show, Tim, it went on way too long. Don't you agree?
It was incredibly, epically long, Carl.
So I don't want to do that again. If a show is going too long, I'm going to break it up into 2 segments. So I'm going to try to move this along. But I think it went long because I said stupid things like I would just don't talk about like Eagle-Eyed Cherry. But guess what, Tim? I can't I can't avoid it. There's another song on my mind, Vanessa Carlton, 1,000 Miles. Is this a great song? Is this a song you have to listen to from beginning to end if it comes on the radio?
It is.
Yeah.
It is, Carl. I can't deny.
So that's 2. What about you, Rob? Vanessa Carlton, 1,000 Miles. Is that a banger?
You know what? I would have to hear it.
Wow. So I guess not. If I could walk into your eyes, do you think time would pass us by? Oh, if you then I walk 1,000 miles, if I could just see you tonight. Yeah, that one.
Yeah, no, that's definitely a banger. You know what? I'm glad you cleared that up because I started to think about that joint by the Proclaimers.
Oh.
Remember those 2 dudes? They were twin.
500 miles. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so we got a big show. I mean, listen, I am pretty certain Rob will do the Poo Poo Beat challenge that Steve Harris wouldn't do, and then we're going to talk about decades. And there's a lot to talk about there. So we're going to move on quickly here. And we're going to knock out another 8-1. We got a big matchup here. This is probably the toughest first-round matchup. Tim already used his veto. We got Sorry.
I did.
Sorry versus Yahtzee. What do you got, Rob?
I'm going to have to go with Guess Who again. And,
Stop it.
I'm going to No, and I'm going to tell you why, because
that's not how this works. That's not how this works, you son of a jackal. Sorry versus Yahtzee.
Sorry versus Yahtzee?
Yes. Follow the rules.
Well, I would say that Sorry is more of an era-based game. It was it's kind of a fad. You know, it came and went.
I don't
know. Now, Yahtzee is timeless. I mean, Yahtzee is popular now as it ever was. So I'm going to go with Yahtzee.
All right, Yahtzee moves on. I'm cool with that. All right. So, prank call challenge. We've had a lot of them. You know, Tim used to be a guest, and I wrote this script for him. You would like this, Rob, where he called an Arby's, and he had to use all of their slogans in one call, you know?
Really?
Yeah, I wrote out the script for him. He still kind of struggled. You know, he didn't even read it verbatim. But I wrote a script for you because that's what I do.
Okay.
You don't have to go with it. You're going to call a Chinese restaurant and ask for a Pu Pu Platter, and you're going to ask if you can add a side of peas. What do you think that would become? A Pu Pu Platter with peas would be a Pu Pu Pea challenge, right? How old are we? Is this still funny for people in their mid-30s? Am I ridiculous?
It is still funny,
I'm not saying it isn't sophomore, but it's definitely funny.
The challenge is this. It's not a 60-second challenge. It's simple challenges you can't laugh because that will ruin it. Okay?
I'll do my best.
All right, are you ready?
Yes, sir.
Logan, phone me up here?
Yes, hi. I would like to place an order, please, for a Pu Pu Platter.
For pickup?
Yes, pickup, please. And I had a question. Now, would it be possible to add a side of peas to that?
Add a what?
Well, for my Pu Pu Platter, I would like to, I would like to add a side of peas, making it a Pu Pu Pea Platter because, you see, I like poo and pea.
Pea?
Yes, ma'am.
You said beans?
No, P-E-A-S, peas.
B-E?
I'll tell you what,
B?
hey, I'll do you one better. You see, I work at the Dunkin' Donuts, right? And for Mr. Patel, and we've got some day olds here, and maybe we could work out a barter or something. Maybe
okay.
I could throw you a trash bag of donuts from yesterday for some sweet and sour chicken. Or what you can do is you can make a donut sandwich. You do know what a donut sandwich is, right?
I don't know what that is.
Well, see, that's when you have a donut between two donuts, and it's delicious.
Donut. I don't make it donut. I don't know the donut.
You don't know the donut?
Yeah, I don't make it donut.
Fair enough. Well, look at here. Would it be possible to add a side of peas to my Pu Pu Platter?
I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. All right, Tim. I don't know about you, but that was a great challenge. Rob went above and beyond, and the person we called would not hang up. I had to end the call. So I give 2 thumbs up. What about you, Tim?
I'm interested in this donut sandwich.
Oh, yeah. I don't know where he was going with that.
Would you like me to explain it again?
No. We got it. Let's knock out another 8-1 before we go to the main topic. This is Risk versus Trivial Pursuit. Rob, who do you got? What do you got, and why?
Well, I'm going to go with Risk because, like I said, I'm a rebel, and I'm all about taking risks.
No, listen, I love Risk, but it's one of those games where I kind of want to only play if we have like 5 or 6 people. And it's tough to get that many people. But I'm not going to use my veto. Tim already used his. Risk is moving on. Monopoly, Yahtzee, and Risk move on to the semifinals. Good job, Rob. Are you ready, guys, to go to the main topic?
I'm ready.
It's called Rank Our Decades. Tim, this is a sports podcast, but not today, okay?
What?
Our only sports topic was about 1980s wrestling. And
that's right.
That's scraping the surface. All right. We got Rob Daniel with us. Rob, did you finish out 8th grade, or did you leave during the school year? I don't even remember.
Nah, I moved to Tampa Bay, Florida, with my mother shortly after the 8th grade school year.
So you finished the school year, and then you left?
That's correct.
Okay.
I finished out my high school career in Florida.
I didn't have any classes with you in 8th grade. I think it was just 7th. Do you remember when we were in 7th grade in language arts class, and our teacher, who's Miss Daniels, close to your name but with an S, all of a sudden said, "All right, kids, stop what you're doing. I got to turn on the OJ verdict." Do you remember that?
I remember. I remember when we watched the verdict. In fact, Ms. Osborne, she was the TA.
Yeah.
Teacher's assistant. She wasn't a licensed teacher yet, but she was the one who actually had put it on for us.
Yeah, here we are, 12, 13-year-olds like, okay. And I don't want to sound like, I shouldn't say it, but I just remember there's a kid in our class, Antoine Johnson. You could probably guess what race he is. Just like fist pumping after the verdict. After we got the no guilty verdict, he was pretty pumped. You know, it's like he won. I'm like, yeah, not guilty. I'm like, all right. I didn't care. I really didn't care. I'm in 7th grade. What do I know? But I still remember that. I do remember that. Do you remember that?
I remember.
You remember Antoine fist pumping? You probably don't.
Well, he was the East Indian kid, right?
Stop it. All right, Rob, you're making me sound bad. All right, forget it. Who knows? So we're ranking our decades, and guys, I helped you out big time. You know, show sheet. I listed all these trends from the 80s, 90s, 2000s, and 2010s, and we're gonna rank the decades. You know, we're gonna go through each one, and we're gonna rank them, and we're gonna see which one's the best. Because all of us were born in the 80s. We developed our personalities in the 90s. The 2000s, we kind of became men. And then the 2010s, we were just pissed off, right? That's how it is for me. Same for you, Rob?
Yeah.
And when did this happen?
What'd you say?
When did we become men?
The 2000s.
Did I miss something?
Did you miss something?
Now, I remember Antoine Johnson fist pumping after the OJ verdict, but
after that, nothing.
You never said anything about becoming a man.
All right, fair enough. All right, guys, listen, let's just jump right in. We're born in the 80s. We don't remember a lot. I have a list of trends. Rob, tell me something about the 1980s that either you remember or you wish would come back, or something that stands out. Anything at all. It's your world.
The Jerry curl, definitely. Why can't we bring back the Jerry curl?
I don't know. I mean, listen, it's, I don't know, not a good hair trend. That's what you're really going to talk about? That's your choice?
Yeah.
All right. What about a trend from the 80s that you wish would never come back?
A trend from the 80s I wish would never come back. You mean besides Ronald Reagan?
Stop it. All right, we're moving on to Tim. Tim, something from the 80s. Something from the 80s.
Cartoons. Make cartoons great again, Carl.
And something from the 80s that you wish wouldn't come back.
Wish I wouldn't come back? Big hair. Jersey-licious hair from the 80s. No, thank you.
Boom. I kind of agree with Tim on the hair thing. It's not a good look. The thing that stood out to me most was MTV, because MTV in the 80s, it seemed like it was what it really was meant to be. Music television.
So you're saying that it was a music television station that actually played music television?
Yep. I know, crazy.
Wow.
Right? I mean, listen, 1980s, we were babies, we were little kids. We really didn't get to experience things like the Walkman. We get to experience lame things like the Smurfs. We like Miami Vice wasn't a big deal to us in the 80s, or the Moonwalk Dance. But we still had a good time.
You know something that I think we need to bring back, besides the Jerry curl, of course, is the bird. I know y'all remember the bird, right?
Bird. Bird is the word. That?
No. It was a dance, okay? You would basically, you would have your hands at your hips, and with your elbows, you would have your elbows flexed, and you would basically... You would extend your head forward emotion,
Stop.
much like a
What
pigeon.
the hell's he talking
you're-
about, Tim? What the hell's he talking about?
I don't know, Carl.
We're moving on to the 90s. Sorry, Rob. It's
All right, so-
we basically know the 80s has no chance here. But this decade, this is a decade we became teenagers. We got pubic hair. This is a decade we woke up with morning wood. This is a great decade. And Tim, I'm going to go to you first because Rob, quite frankly, he pissed me off last decade with his nonsense. There's a lot about the 90s, Tim. Beanie Babies, the internet, Fruitopia, gangster rap.
It was a great decade, Carl.
Oh my
It was
goodness.
a great decade.
Pokemon. What do you want? Ska music. Smells like Teen Spirit. Tim, give me something. One or two things. Tickle Me Elmo. What from the 90s stands out?
Like,
what would Jesus do?
Probably nothing.
Stop. Listen.
I want cartoons to be great again and music to be great again, Carl.
Big Mouth Billy Bass. Dude, the 90s was crazy for music. We had grunge, we had boy bands, we had R&B. So that we had chat rooms. But listen, what are you picking here? What in the 90s sticks out?
It's the music. Heads above everything else.
Yeah. Rob, I'll go to you.
Rap came to its own.
Rob, I'm not even going to chime in. I've said too much about the 90s. It's your world, Rob.
Well, if you're asking me, what I remember most about the 90s was the time I spent the night at Chris Lussick's house. You remember Chris Lussick?
Yeah, but you got to remember, this is a podcast, so man, we're not just talking. So if you're going to do radio for two, you might want to reconsider.
So you don't want to hear the story about Chris Lussick?
I mean, I'd rather you talk about like the George Foreman grill, something that is 90s related. But Rob, listen, you're the guest. It's your world. This might hurt your throne of awesome status. Go ahead.
Fair enough. Okay, well, I only mention it because this took place in the 90s, okay? I want to say 97. We were 14, and Chris Lussick, I was having a sleepover at his place. Now, you remember back in the day, before they had all the streaming services like they had today, you had to look in your TV guide to see what kind of nudies came on the cable later that night. Y'all remember that?
Yes, I do.
I remember Skinamax.
Come on, Rob.
Yeah.
Go on. Move this along.
Okay, I'm bringing it home now. Well, we looked at the TV guide and revealed that Real Sex 16 would be showing much later that night, at which point I mentioned to Chris that I had seen it a couple of times before. It was definitely worth watching. And so not long after that, his mother comes in from work, okay? And, prior to that, we were two 14-year-old boys on the verge of manhood. We had we got a tube of cookie dough out of the fridge, and instead of making a bunch of little bitty cookies, we cut it in half, and we each made one big ass cookie. Okay, and by the time his mother came home, we were each eating a cookie the size of our head. We had a gallon of milk sitting in front of us at the table, pouring gallon after gallon. His mother comes in from the job. She's tired. She's cranky. And for about an hour, she vents about how hard her day was. And at one point, she even said the N-word, which really wasn't appropriate considering Chris, her son, was half black.
Yeah, but, I remember that. Go on. Finish this ridiculous story. Finish it.
So after she vents, after she had her moment to vent and calm down, she's sitting at the table with us. We're eating our cookies, and Chris, we're laughing and talking, having a great time, And Chris, out of nowhere, says, "Mom, can we watch Real Sex 16?" And I just had this look of disbelief on my face, not really understanding why he was. We agreed that we were going to watch it later that night, but I just didn't understand why he was asking his mother's permission. So her response was a typical, "Mom, oh God, And I couldn't help but laugh, and I said, so I added, please. And then finally, Chris added, because she wasn't really going for it at first, but then Chris kind of convinced her. He said, come on, Mom, it's sex for teenagers. So I leaned forward. I'm like, sex for teenagers, really? Is that all you got? And then finally, he decides to come clean, and he says, okay, well, it's not sex for teenagers, but you remember what you said, Mom? I'm only human. And she finally agreed to let us watch it. So as we watched it that night, I mean, it was, I was just so glad to know that we had her blessing.
The 1990s, known for their ska punk, the Super Soakers, slap bracelets, Tamagotchis, and Real Sex 16.
Yeah, and let me tell you, I was such a huge fan of slap bracelets.
Okay. All right, that's it.
I was so...
No. Yeah. We got to move on. All right, that was the 90s with Rob's ridiculous story that I'm sure Tim fell asleep with. Tim, are you still awake?
What's going on, Carl?
I mean, what the hell was he talking about? What the hell? I don't know. I mean, the 2000s were much better. We finished...
I mean, it was a magical evening of self-discovery, and I mean, that was a night that Chris Ludwig and I became men.
Fair enough. Here we go. But listen, the 2000s...
I mean, between the...
Stop it. All right. The 2000s were... the 2000s, the early 2000s, the late 90s were all kind of mixed together for me. There's no difference between like 99 and 2000. No difference. Or 2001. And listen, guys, the 2000s is when we finished high school, was when we went to college. We had the Cinnamon Challenge. We had cupcake stores everywhere for some reason. You could tickle Elmo and not feel weird. Gangster rap was making a comeback. And then in the late 2000s, it got soft. We finished college and then High School Musical came out. But we were too old for that shit, we're not going to care about that. But Eminem, Lose Yourself, Metrosexual was a thing. But here's what defines the decade, guys. Mobile phones. Everybody got a mobile phone in this decade. If you got a mobile phone in a different decade, you're either rich or poor. Am I right?
Yeah. I recall that I had a coworker who he never attained a smartphone until the Galaxy S3 came out. This was maybe 6 years ago, and what happened was we worked on a job together. We worked this factory job, and we made barely over minimum wage, all right? And he, his only means of entertainment, along with his old lady, was to hit up the Bloodmobile on the weekends, where they would get free movie passes. Only on the weekends. They would walk to the mall. They would donate blood, and in return would get these movie tickets, and they would see a movie. Other than that, the only entertainment was watching the roaches crawl across the ceiling. So he budgeted and planned and saved for months before he finally had enough money for a smartphone. It was a Galaxy S3. I remember that because all he talked about was that damn phone. So we go into the job early one morning, and we're sitting in the cafeteria waiting to clock in, and his name was Sam. And Sam and I were having our usual Friday morning conversation. What are you doing this weekend? That kind of thing. And it was then that I mentioned that my daughter was to be having her birthday party. And then the following day, the neighbor's little girl was having her party, to which we were invited. And Sam said, that sounds like a boring weekend. I'm getting my phone. So I was like, okay, all right, you go on with your bad self. So later that day, it was about 1-something, our last little 10-minute break. We're in the cafeteria. All the guys are together. And, of course, I had a smartphone by then. And I was showing all the guys something on my phone, something funny. And I go to show Sam, and he just looks at me and shakes his head as if to say, I'm not interested. At which point I said, I'm having a funner weekend than you because I'm getting my phone. One of the other guys, Damien, he said, that sounded gay as hell. And then I said, well, that's pretty much exactly what Sam said to me this morning. Everybody just lost it, and they're going on and making fun of him. And several minutes later, he looked over to me and my friend Claude and to see if we were still talking about him. And we're like, fuck yeah, we're talking about you. But that's my mobile phone story.
Tim, Rob's stories are too long.
Man, if they're any longer, they're going to be epic.
I'm not even going to ask Rob about the 2000s because, I already said I don't want the show to last too long. But, hey, Tim, give me something from the 2000s that stands out.
Oh, I really miss the post-hardcore scene from punk.
Yeah.
I think that's when Finch was at its best.
The 90s were so soft with, the bubblegum pop that the 2000s, you got the emo shit and the stuff you're talking about. It kind of got a little darker there in the 2000s, right?
That's where I like to live, Carl.
Punk rock made a comeback, right? The post-punk revival, post-hardcore,
I really enjoy
post-grunge.
Yeah, I don't know. It's still unrefined. It's still raw. It's still real. It's not polished and crap.
All right. Well, Rob, I beg you. You can't tell another long story. We got to keep this under a certain time. I'm not saying you're a bad guest, but your stories, they're just long. Does that make sense?
Fair enough. We'll keep it to a minimum.
But they're good stories. I like how you just, we're naming people like we know them, like Clyde and other people. Like, oh, yeah, Clyde.
Oh, that was Claude, the Haitian sensation, we call him. We're still friends to this day. We hang out.
So we're in the 2010s now. Great decade. Not. What the shit? We have clown sightings, cloud rap. What the hell is that? Cloud rap? I don't even know.
This decade is everything I wished it wasn't, Carl.
We got memes galore, emo rap, Harlem Shake, mannequin challenges, the Pokemon Go. It's been a horrible decade. I don't even know.
I remember one night I was at the Kratom place, and it was nothing but
is this
kids
another long story?
Pokemon on the phone. No, that's all I was saying.
I'm just kidding.
I was at the Kratom place. That's all it was kids playing Pokemon on their phone.
Listen, all right. So my we gotta go quick because my laptop's dying. This has happened before. So you guys just want to take it home? Listen, 2010, 10 seconds or less. What stands out, Tim?
It was terrible, miserable, an abomination.
What about you, Rob? 10 seconds or less. Tebow, Slender Man, selfie sticks. What stands out? Rice bucket challenge? What the hell is that?
Rice bucket challenge?
Yeah. Listen, guys. I love everyone. Those are the 4 decades. And they've all been so different. The 80s we don't remember. The 90s is when we got pubic hairs. The 2000s when we finished school. And then 2010s is when we became old men and we just got pissed at the world.
There you are.
So let's just start ranking. I'm just gonna go through the decades and we're gonna rank them 4 through 1. Are you guys ready?
Yes, sir.
Ready, Carl.
So Rob, 4, 3, 2, 1. What do you have the 80s? These are the 4 decades you've been alive. Where do you rank the 80s?
80s, definitely number 1.
Wow, really?
Yeah.
All right. Did not expect that.
Well, some people's lives are a steady ascendancy. Mine has been a slow and steady decline.
Oh.
I'll have to go with the 80s first. A close second being the 90s.
No, we're not going there
followed
yet.
by
no,
the 2000s.
stop
Okay.
ranking. Come on, we gotta have a system here, Rob. Come on, Tim. Where do you have the 80s?
They're my number 1 slot, Carl.
Are you serious?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Well, I have them 3rd. So you guys are just killing these rankings. Goodness gracious. Anyway, it's all right, Rob. You kind of jumped the gun here, but 1990s. Where do you have them?
Well, as I mentioned, 1990s are a close second to the 80s.
There's Rob. Now he understands the format. He's following the rules. Rob, I'm not trying to be a jerk to you, You know that.
No,
right?
I understand. This is on me.
No, you're good.
I got ahead of myself.
You don't understand the show. You have to understand the show,
I don't understand much of anything. But,
you're fine, dude. I like you. I want to have you back on. Tim, where do you have the 90s?
They're also my number 2 seed, Carl.
They're number 2, and I have them number 1. Easy choice, number 1. Come on, guys. How do you? Never mind. We don't have time for it. We'll have to have Rob back on again and just talk about nonsense and how he ranks 80s one like you. All right, Rob. We're going to the 2000s. You finished high school. You had, you probably became a father in that decade, right?
Well, I did become a father in the 2000s.
See,
but,
it's a big decade.
Who said anything about finishing high school?
Where do you have the 2000s? Whatever you call that. The aughts? The zeros?
I'm going to have them be in my third slot.
Oh, wait. Rob didn't rank it yet.
I'm sorry, Carl.
What do you got him, Rob?
Yeah, I don't know what kind of nonsense that Tim is talking about, but I'm going to put the 2000s at number 3.
All right, and so did Tim. Fair enough, Tim. Even though I met you in the 2000s, you still put him third. I guess meeting Carl Coffee is not that big of a deal.
In the 80s, it was cartoons and heavy metal. In the 90s, it was video games. In the 2000s, it was the Carl Coffees.
I like this decade. I did not like 08, but one bad year doesn't ruin 9 other great years. Boys, I got him second. So by the process of elimination, we'll move along fast. All 3 of us has the 2010s as last. That's kind of sad, right, Rob?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what's going on. You got the kids doing the Kraytone, you got the hipsters, and you got boys want to be girls, girls want to be boys, and I don't know what's going on anymore. I mean, it's blowing my mind. And I mean, you can't even talk to women anymore, man. I went up to this broad the other day. I said, "Hey, do you like Chinese food?" She said, "Yes." And I said, "Well, how'd you like if I take you out sometime and treat you to nice Peking duck?" She said, "I like that very much." I said, "Well, that's great. In fact, he's peeking out of my shorts right now." And this bitch looked at me like I said something wrong. And then let me tell you something, man. I had this other broad over the other night, and I want to cook for her. Really wanted to make an impression, so I'm in the kitchen throwing down, and finally I serve it up, and she's talking about, "Oh my God, this is like an orgasm in my mouth." And I said, "I'm sorry, is it too salty?"
Wow.
Are you done, Rob? I am regretting putting you on this show. And I'm gonna leave it up before. Oh my God, I've totally neglected the 8-1. We got to knock out some, but oh my gosh! All right, so before we go to the winners of the decade challenge, let's knock out this last matchup in the first round: Battleship versus Scrabble. What do you got, Rob?
I'll go with Scrabble again. I mean, Scrabble's timeless. Battleship, that came and went. That was so 1992.
I'm not going to veto you, and we got to move along. We got Monopoly versus Yahtzee. Huge matchup here. Tim vetoed the Guess Who winner. Monopoly versus Yahtzee. Who's moving on to the finals?
I'm sorry, were you asking me?
Yeah, Monopoly versus Yahtzee.
Monopoly versus Yahtzee?
Yes.
I would have to go with Monopoly.
Monopoly moves on. He didn't pick it first time, but it moves on to the finals. Risk versus Scrabble.
Scrabble.
I will veto that. It's my last chance to use the veto. Risk is moving on. All right, so before we go to the finals, let's look at the final standings in the Decade Challenge, or whatever we call it. I don't know. Rob, you totally turned the show upside down, which is probably a good thing, You kept us on our toes. So the 2010s, guys, was ranked the last. We've decided, we all ranked it 4th. That is the worst decade we've been alive. Tim, are you surprised?
No.
Yeah, it's just a horrible decade.
Because
come on.
feeling facts and data.
The coming in at number 3 was the 2000s. Both of you guys ranked them 3rd. I ranked them 2nd, but they come in at number 3. Any surprise there, Rob?
Nah, the 2000s at number 3.
Yeah.
It wasn't a very, aside from the birth of my daughter, it wasn't a really eventful decade for me.
Fair enough. And, boys,
it was the last, other than the fact that it was the last good decade for music. That's all I'm going to say about it.
We have a tie for first place. The 80s and the 90s both tied, which I'm shocked. I thought the 90s was going to walk away. Both you guys ranked in 90s second. I ranked them first. You guys both ranked the 80s first. I ranked them third. They tie. So we have a tie. 80s and 90s are tied. You guys both think the 80s were better. I think the 90s are better. But here we are. There's nothing that can break the tie. We don't have a fourth person on. So we have to move along. Rob, are you disappointed that we couldn't have a definite ranking? Number one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know what I'm going to do.
I'm shocked. You guys were just little boys in the 80s. Like, how can you think it was that great of a decade?
Oh, I mean, first of all, the music. You had artists like Prince, Michael Jackson, and DeBarge. I mean, they transcended racial barriers of music. They had music that was so good. It wasn't black music. It definitely wasn't white music. It was music for everybody. And music is what makes not only a decade, but a generation. And
all right. Yeah, all right. I get it. No, you got it. All right. Tim, do you agree with him, or is he just spewing nonsense?
For me, the last time I remember being happy was in the 80s. So,
Good
yeah.
God. This has turned into a depressing podcast. Guys, I'm sorry to be the dick, but I got to move along. Rob, I want you to have you back on, but goodness gracious.
You're beginning to reconsider?
No. I just, I had to move things along. So let's just knock out the championship here, and then we're going to finish it off. Monopoly versus Risk. And let me tell you, Rob, both of these choices are in the finals because of vetoes. So so you didn't pick these two, but they got to the finals. So pick the winner. Monopoly versus Risk, and why?
Monopoly versus Risk. Well, I'm going to have to go with Monopoly.
And why?
Because it just goes back to the timeless thing. I mean, Risk had its moments. It had its periods of time during which it was popular. But, I mean, when you have a gathering of 3 or more people, when do you hear, let's play Risk? It's always, let's play Monopoly.
Yeah, but if it's 4 to 5 men, it's Risk. If it's mixed, it's Monopoly. But, hey, Monopoly, it was my 1 seed, and it won. Even though you tried to knock it out with Guess Who, you son of a jackal. Anyways, we'll move along. So, Tim, I'm gonna give you the decision here. Is he, Rob Daniel, worthy of the Throne of Awesome?
Carl, yes, he is.
Wow. Congratulations, Rob. I don't know if you know this, but every 4 months we crown a Throne of Awesome champion. And right now you're sitting in the throne. And that's crazy because Tim was in the throne, right, Tim?
Oh, I was, Carl.
So good job, Rob. This show was all over the place, but you're in the throne. Congratulations. Are you happy?
Oh, thank you, guys. I'm honored.
And my laptop's about to die, so I'm going to send this home. Usually I would let you plug something, but I'm not going to let you now. Rob, sorry I was kind of a dick, but you know what? The host has to move shows along, you know what I mean? So for Rob Daniel...
The show must go on.
Rob Daniel, my good friend in 7th grade language arts, and for Tim Anderson, the asshole, I'm Crow Coffee. We'll talk to you next time for episode 10? See ya!